ExamPrep.School. NC Self-Employed Insurance Adjuster Exam. Exam code InsNC-SEAdj30. There are 4 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Commercial insurance coverages, loss report, loss damage valuation, personal auto policy, personal insurance coverages, statutes and regulations, pertinent to adjusters, terms and concepts. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Which of the following most accurately defines peril as used in property insurance contracts? A. The uncertainty or chance of a policyholder experiencing a loss. B. A specific event or circumstance that increases the likelihood of a loss. C. A condition or situation that exposes property to loss. D. The actual cause or event that brings about a loss covered by the policy. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is the actual cause or event that results in an insured loss, which precisely defines peril in property insurance. Reason A is not correct. This describes risk, which is the uncertainty of loss rather than the loss event itself. Reason B is not correct. This describes a hazard which increases loss likelihood rather than causing the loss. Reason C is not correct. This also describes a hazard condition, not the specific event that causes the loss. Question 2. Which of the following is an example of moral hazard in insurance? A. Driving a vehicle more aggressively after purchasing collision coverage. B. An icy sidewalk in front of a store that increases slip and fall risk. C. A defective electrical wiring hidden from the insurer at policy inception. D. Living next to a chemical plant that increases potential contamination risk. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is a behavior change induced by the presence of insurance coverage, illustrating moral hazard where risk-taking increases once protection is in place. Reason B is not correct. This describes a physical hazard, a tangible condition that increases the chance of loss. Reason C is not correct. This illustrates concealment or misrepresentation but is not a hazard condition affecting behavior under coverage. Reason D is not correct. This is an environmental hazard external to the insured and not related to behavior induced by coverage. Question 3. A building insured under a named peril policy sustains damage when tremors from an earthquake crack its walls. Earthquake is an example of which classification of peril? A. Named peril. B. Basic peril. C. Consequential peril. D. Fundamental peril. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is fundamental peril because fundamental perils are large-scale events capable of causing widespread catastrophic damage, such as earthquakes. Reason A is not correct. Named peril is a coverage term referring to specific perils listed in a policy, not a classification of the peril itself. Reason B is not correct. Basic peril refers to commonly insured risks like fire or windstorm, which are less catastrophic than earthquakes. Reason C is not correct. Consequential peril arises as a secondary result of another event, such as water damage from a burst pipe, not a primary earthquake event. Question 4. Under the common law doctrine of insurable interest for property insurance, insurable interest must exist at which of the following times to validate the contract? A. When the insurer assumes the risk. B. At the policy inception date. C. Upon occurrence of a covered loss. D. At the policy renewal date. The correct answer is B. Insurable interest must be present when the contract is formed, that is, at policy inception, to satisfy the legal requirement. It is not required at loss or renewal. Reason A is not correct. Although insurer assumption of risk often coincides with inception, the legal requirement specifically refers to the inception date of the policy. Reason C is not correct. A covered loss does not require the insured to have insurable interest at that time under common law property principles. Reason D is not correct. Policy renewal date is irrelevant to the initial requirement of insurable interest, which must be established at inception. Question 5. Which purpose of the principle of indemnity is illustrated by this claim settlement? A. Prevent insurer from paying more than the actual cash value. B. Ensure that premiums vary according to each policyholder's loss history. C. Prevent the policyholder from profiting from an insurance loss. D. Promote rapid settlement by encouraging direct agreements with third parties. The correct answer is C. The principle of indemnity restores the insured to their pre-loss financial position without allowing any gain. Settling based on the depreciated value ensures the insured receives only actual cash loss compensation. Reason A is not correct. This describes payment limit but does not capture the goal of preventing insured profit. Reason B is not correct. This relates to premium rating rather than indemnification of loss. Reason D is not correct. This concerns settlement process but not the financial restoration purpose of indemnity. Question 6. Within the structure of a standard insurance policy, which section details the named insured's information, policy period, covered property and perils, coverage limits, premium, and list any endorsements and rating information? A. Declarations. B. Insuring agreement. C. Exclusions. D. Conditions. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is the Declarations section, which provides all policy-specific details including the named insured, policy period, covered property and perils, coverage limits, premium, and any listed endorsements and rating data. Reason B is not correct. Insuring agreement defines the insurer's core promise to pay for covered losses, but does not include the insured's name, limits, or premium details. Reason C is not correct. Exclusions outline what perils or losses are not covered and do not provide policyholder or premium information. Reason D is not correct. Conditions state the obligations of both parties under the policy but do not specify coverage limits, premiums, or endorsements. Question 7. During the application for homeowners insurance, the applicant intentionally left blank the question about prior termite infestations. 1 month after policy issuance, the homeowner discovers extensive termite damage and files a claim. Under the principle of concealment, which action can the insurer lawfully take? A. Charge an additional premium surcharge for the undisclosed infestation. B. Deny only the termite damage claim, but maintain coverage for other losses. C. Rescind the policy from its inception. D. Invoke subrogation to recover repair costs from the homeowner. The correct answer is C. Because the insured willfully concealed a material fact, prior termite infestation, the insurer may void the contract ab initio by rescission, treating the policy as though it never existed. Reason A is not correct. Imposing a surcharge is not a recognized remedy for concealment. The usual remedy is voiding the policy. Reason B is not correct. Denying only the specific claim ignores the insurer's right to avoid the entire contract when a material fact is concealed. Reason D is not correct. Subrogation applies against third parties, not as a remedy for an insured's intentional concealment. Question 8. Under the standard fire policy, which of the following perils is insured against? A. Hail damage. B. Lightning strike. C. Flooding. D. Windstorm. The correct answer is B. The standard fire policy insures against loss by fire, lightning, and removal. Lightning strike is specifically named as a covered peril, whereas hail, windstorm, and flooding are excluded. Reason A is not correct. Hail damage is excluded under the standard fire policy. Reason C is not correct. Flooding is excluded under the standard fire policy. Reason D is not correct. Windstorm is excluded under the standard fire policy. Question 9. Under the amount of insurance limitation in the standard fire policy, insurer's liability for a covered loss is the least of all the following except A. The actual cash value of the property at the time of loss. B. The insured's interest in the property at time of loss. C. Replacement cost at the time of loss. D. The amount of insurance stated in the policy. The correct answer is C. The amount of insurance. Limitation limits liability to the least of actual cash value, insured's interest, or policy limit. Replacement cost is not used in this calculation. Reason A is not correct. Actual cash value is one of the factors limiting liability under the amount of insurance clause. Reason B is not correct. The insured's interest at time of loss is one factor used in determining the liability limit. Reason D is not correct. The policy's stated amount of insurance is included in the calculation for limiting liability. Question 10. An insured suffers a covered fire loss on March 1st. The insurer mails a proof of loss form on March 15th, requesting completion within 30 days. The insurer receives the completed form on May 5th. Under the standard fire policy, how is the timeliness of the proof of loss submission classified? A. Invalid, as proof must be filed by the policyholder's anniversary date. B. Late, because the policy requires submission within 30 days of loss. C. Acceptable, since the policy allows 90 days from the date of mailing. D. Timely, because it was received within 60 days of the insurer's request. The correct answer is D. Under the policy, proof of loss must be furnished within 60 days after the insurer requests it. Receiving it on May 5th, 51 days after March 15th, meets that requirement. Reason A is not correct. There is no policy requirement to submit proof of loss by the anniversary date. Reason B is not correct. The policy's 30-day requirement applies to the insurer's request window, not to the time from loss to submission. Reason C is not correct. The policy does not provide a 90-day filing period from mailing. Question 11. After a partial fire loss, a homeowner leaves the undamaged portion of the building on site and instructs the insurer to take possession of all remaining structure. The homeowner then demands full replacement cost coverage under the policy. Under the abandonment clause of the standard fire policy, what is the insurer's correct response? A. The insurer must assume control of the entire structure to evaluate salvage. B. The insurer is not required to accept abandonment of undamaged property and can settle without taking possession. C. The insurer may compel the homeowner to abandon the remains before paying any replacement value. D. The insurer must pay full replacement cost and retain ownership of undamaged portions. The correct answer is B. The abandonment clause does not obligate the insurer to accept abandonment of undamaged property. The insurer may settle the claim without taking possession of the remaining structure. Reason A is not correct. The insurer has no duty to take control of undamaged property under the abandonment clause. Reason C is not correct. The insurer cannot force abandonment as a condition for payment. Reason D is not correct. Replacement cost payment does not transfer ownership of undamaged portions to the insurer. Question 12. An insured's appraiser and the insurer's appraiser each submit valuations for a fire loss, differing by $8,000. They cannot agree on a neutral umpire. Under the appraisal clause of the standard fire policy, what is the next step to resolve the valuation dispute? A. Refer the matter to an independent arbitrator under the policy. B. Both appraisers must jointly select a second umpire to break the tie. C. The insured must accept the average of the two appraisals as final. D. Either party may request a court of competent jurisdiction to appoint the umpire. The correct answer is D. When appraisers cannot agree on an umpire, either party may petition a court of competent jurisdiction to appoint the umpire, as specified by the appraisal clause. Reason A is not correct. The clause provides for court appointment of an umpire, not arbitration under external rules. Reason B is not correct. The clause does not require joint selection of an additional umpire to resolve disagreement. Reason C is not correct. The policy does not allow averaging of the two appraisals as the final value. Question 13. Which of the following dwelling type structures is eligible for coverage under the dwelling property program without requiring an endorsement? A. A 3-unit row house insured as a single policy. B. A 6-unit apartment building. C. A single-family dwelling with a home-based business occupying 30% of the living area. D. A mobile home used as a permanent residence. The correct answer is A. Dwelling property forms cover up to 4 family units under one roof and permit incidental business occupancy up to 20% without endorsement, but they do not cover mobile homes without a specific endorsement. Reason B is not correct. A building with 6 units exceeds the maximum limit of 4 family units for the dwelling property program. Reason C is not correct. Home-based business occupying 30% of the living area exceeds the 20% incidental business allowance. Reason D is not correct. Mobile homes require a specific endorsement to be covered under the dwelling property forms. Question 14. Which of the following perils is covered under the DP1 basic form? A. Windstorm. B. Internal explosion. C. Flood. D. Vandalism. The correct answer is B. The DP1 basic form provides coverage only for fire, including lightning, and internal explosion, excluding perils like windstorm, flood, and vandalism unless added by endorsement. Reason A is not correct. Windstorm is not included under the basic form but is available under the broad form. Reason C is not correct. Flood is expressly excluded under the basic form. Reason D is not correct. Vandalism is excluded under the basic form and is covered only by endorsement or broader forms. Question 15. A homeowner with a DP2 broad form dwelling policy returns from vacation to find that a water pipe in the utility room froze and burst overnight, flooding the space. Which loss would be covered under the additional perils of DP2 broad form? A. Sudden freezing of an interior water pipe that bursts and floods the utility room. B. Groundwater seeping through basement cracks during a thaw. C. Excessive snow weight causing collapse of a satellite dish attached to the dwelling. D. Corrosion causing a slow steam boiler leak over several months. The correct answer is A. DP2 broad form specifically includes freezing of plumbing as an additional peril when it causes a sudden break. Groundwater seepage and slow corrosion leaks are excluded, and snow weight applies only to collapse of the structure, not attached fixtures. Reason B is not correct. Seepage of groundwater is a water damage exclusion, not covered under DP2. Broad form additional perils. Reason C is not correct. Snow weight coverage applies only to collapse of the dwelling or other structures, not to fixtures like a satellite dish. Reason D is not correct. Corrosion and gradual leaks are excluded as wear and tear, not sudden freezing perils. Question 16. Under a DP3 special form dwelling policy, a hidden decay oak branch falls from a mature tree and dents the exterior vinyl siding without penetrating the roof. Which loss is covered under the DP3 special form coverage scope? A. Exterior vinyl siding dented by a fallen branch due to hidden decay. B. Interior drywall cracks from the weight of accumulated snow without roof breach. C. Foundation cracks caused by gradual earth movement. D. Balcony railing rust deterioration over several years. The correct answer is A. DP3. Special form provides open perils coverage for the dwelling and other structures, including exterior damage by falling objects. Interior-only falling object limitations of DP2 don't apply, and exclusions bar earth movement and wear and tear deterioration. Reason B is not correct. Falling object coverage under DP2 is limited to interior damage after roof breach, but DP3 open perils still require a precipitating covered peril, and this scenario lacks roof penetration. Reason C is not correct. Earth movement is an exclusion under DP3 special form policies. Reason D is not correct. Wear, tear, and deterioration are excluded under DP3 open perils coverage. Question 17. Which of the following correctly contrasts coverage A and coverage C between HO2 and HO3 homeowners policies? A. Under HO2, both coverage A and coverage C are provided on a named perils basis. Under HO3, coverage A is open perils, and coverage C is named perils. B. Under both HO2 and HO3, coverage C is open perils and coverage A is broad form. C. Under HO3, both coverage A and coverage C are covered on a named perils basis. Under HO2, coverage A is open perils, and coverage C is named perils. D. Under HO2, coverage A applies on an open perils basis, and coverage C on broad form. Under HO3, both apply on a broad perils basis. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is that HO2 provides both coverage A and coverage C on a named perils basis, whereas HO3 provides coverage A on an open perils basis and coverage C on a named perils basis. Reason B is not correct. That statement is incorrect because coverage C under both HO2 and HO3 is limited to named perils, not open perils. Reason C is not correct. That misstates an HO3 policy, which does not cover both coverages under named perils for coverage A. Reason D is not correct. That reverses the basis for coverage A under HO2 and incorrectly describes the basis under HO3. Question 18. Under an H5 homeowners policy, coverage C for personal property is written on which basis? A. Named perils coverage only for specified perils. B. Broad form peril coverage for personal property. C. Open perils coverage subject to exclusions. D. Guaranteed replacement cost coverage for personal property. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that an HO5 policy provides coverage C on an open perils basis, subject only to policy exclusions. Reason A is not correct. That choice is wrong because HO5 does not limit personal property to named perils. Reason B is not correct. That misstates broad form, which is a named perils list, while HO5 provides open perils coverage. Reason D is not correct. Guaranteed replacement cost applies to dwellings under certain forms, not personal property on an HO5. Question 19. A dwelling has an estimated replacement cost of $300,000. The homeowner's policy requires 80% coinsurance. What is the minimum coverage A limit to satisfy the coinsurance requirement? A. $240,000. B. $200,000. C. $250,000. D. $300,000. The correct answer is A. The minimum limit equals 80% of replacement cost. So $300,000 multiplied by 0.80 equals $240,000. Reason B is not correct. That applies 80% to an incorrect base amount rather than to the $300,000 replacement cost. Reason C is not correct. That does not reflect the 80% coinsurance requirement and is an incorrect calculation. Reason D is not correct. That ignores the 80% coinsurance requirement by using full replacement cost. Question 20. If coverage A is $250,000 under a homeowner's policy, what is the maximum available limit for coverage B, other structures? A, $20,000. B, $35,000. C, $30,000. D, $25,000. The correct answer is D. Coverage B is limited to 10% of the coverage A dwelling limit, so 10% multiplied by $250,000 equals $25,000. Reason A is not correct. That represents 8% of the dwelling limit, not the standard 10%. Reason B is not correct. That applies a 14% factor, which is not the policy's limit for other structures. Reason C is not correct. That equals 12% of the dwelling limit, exceeding the allowable percentage. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.